Alright, this is the icom 751a. I have two of them, they both kind of have problems. My second radio that I owned was a 751 non-alpha. You don't see too many of the early ones. I don't notice a big difference. They said that there was a bunch of problems with the original 751, and that it had like a lot of birdies and things like that in the receive. Certainly not as much as something like a Zygu X6100, if it did. I don't really remember it having issues. I do think there was a slightly different filter used in that radio. And of course, they made the mistake of making all these radios with volatile RAM. I think also the 745 might have that same problem. There was a couple of 2-meter and 440 and maybe a 220 radio that also used this scheme. They at least they only did it for like a little while. So if that board dies, your radio's toast. And if the guy that makes the Pyx board ever stops making those, then and you can't get one, you won't have a way to fix one of these radios. But they're getting pretty long in the tooth, and I don't really think that anybody cares anymore. They do have a really good receiver. They're a quadruple conversion, which is a really, really good receiver. I don't actually understand the implications of that. I figured the more conversions that there is in a receiver, the better it is. But I've heard that that's not necessarily true. And so most radios are not quadruple conversion. There's really only a few out there that are. And I think maybe radios like maybe the FTDX. Well, actually, the FT1000 might be quadruple. I really don't know of any other ones that might be. Maybe the icom 781. Maybe I don't know. I'd have to look it up, but anyway, most radios are just dual conversion, they call it. They're not even triple. So that was the big thing about this radio, I guess. And then they came out with the 761, and then the 765, and then that was kind of the end of that. And I think I'm not really sure what came out after that. Maybe I don't know. The 735 always seems kind of like it should have came out after these radios, but I think it was actually older. I don't know. Anyway, they had a bunch of different radios back in the day, like a 720, 725, 730, 735, a 740, a 745, 751, 751a, 761, 765, 781 is the big, huge flagship one. And, you know, this radio is like a really good radio, but it's not the flagship. They were stupid expensive back in the day, too. I don't know how people afforded radios back then. But then again, I guess you look at what people are paying for radios. A lot of the people on the radio have $3,000 radios. It seems to be a common thing. Which I don't really understand it, because unless you're a contester or something, there's really not a need for these type of performance specs. And there's really not that much activity most of the time. You could get the same enjoyment out of an old, beat up radio that works right. Or you could buy a $900 710. But anyway, this particular radio here is cool, but it doesn't have band stacking. It doesn't have another extra digit, but it's pretty stable. It doesn't really seem to drift on frequency. They can be a little quirky. The trimmers can be bad in them. There seems to be a issue that can happen with the display. But what I like about this radio is that I can use it with my SDR play by removing the receive jumper on the back and hooking a Y adapter up and then just hooking it to my SDR play. So I think it's pretty neat in that aspect. It'll remember where you were at last, but there's no band stack. As soon as you go up a band, it goes to the bottom, and then it goes back to the bottom, which is kind of odd that they, I think PyX should have came up with a way to update that, but anyway, it's a cool radio.